He has been awarded the Outstanding Professor of the Year award at the University of Denver, and his department there ranked in the top 10 in departments that produce students with high ethical standards. We are soon to see why Corey Ciocchetti is one of Denver's most popular and highest rated professors.
You know, Corey was incredible. I was so motivated because I can tell he actually lives the life that he talks about.
It really emphasized that ethical behavior and happiness and success go hand in hand.
Integrity of life that, you know, would make my family proud, make my parents proud.
He's one of the most authentic speakers that I've heard in a long time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Corey Ciocchetti.
I'm happy to be here. I want to ask you a few questions, and then through these questions, I want you to ponder your life. And through my stories, I want you to think about this for the next hour. So, what makes you up as a person? Your character, your integrity. When the storms of life come and knock you down, what makes you resilient and get back up, right? We don't think about that often enough, and I think what people say is, you know, I'm really busy and I'll worry about being a good person later. That's what we always say, right? I'll get to this later, I'm really busy, I got this email, I have to return this, whatever, this phone call, and then we never get to it. And I want to get to it. So this is going to be a little different than the ethics talks you've ever heard before. So I'm going to tell you some stories. Please just think about your life through those things. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Anybody else in that boat in this room? So your parents can't give you a lot of advice. It was just my mom, and I remember her saying, "I can't believe you got into college," which is the first thing she said to me. And she goes, "Go down there and don't screw it up." I'm like, okay. She goes, "You're our only hope." And I said, "I have a sister." What about my little sister? But I was older, see, whatever. So I go down to DU, and I was, to be honest, lucky to get in there. And they put us in a room about 3 months into college, and they said, "You can't leave this room until you pick a major and know what you want to do with the rest of your life." And I'm sitting there going, pick a major, man. I'm just happy to be here. But literally, you could not leave that room until you signed this little piece of paper. So I'm looking through the list, and on that list were things that I thought were really interesting. So history and political science, and I thought, that's what I'll pick. But in the back of my head, I had this voice, just a clueless 18-year-old, right? And it said, "Corey, you can't pick that. You go to college to be rich." Any of you have that voice back in those days? Just admit it. Go ahead and admit it. And the rest of you are lying, one honest guy. Everybody has that voice. So I chose to be a business major. Nothing wrong with that. I just didn't love it. I just thought that was the path. Okay, fast forward. I'm a junior in college, and all my friends are going to law school. And I thought, Corey, that's the trick, man. If you could just go to law school, you could be rich. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted nothing to do with that. I know there's lawyers in here, but just go work with me. I chose Duke Law School because I wanted to go to basketball games. I chose a law school based on basketball. So, but the thing is, if you go to class long enough, they'll give you a law degree. So I have this law degree, and I have $120,000 in debt as a graduate. So I need a job, but I still don't want to be a lawyer. It didn't convince me to want to be a lawyer, but I thought, I got to pay these loans off. I better go try to be a lawyer. So I go to all these different law firms, and I'm interviewing. And when I walk in the door at the interview, it's miserable in there. And this is during the interview. I mean, what's it like every other day? So I get to this one place, and it's 8 in the morning. And this lady's talking to me. She's a partner at this law firm, a really, hot-shot law firm. And she's done. And she goes, "I got 5 minutes left. I have to take you down the hall to the next guy." She goes, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I teach my students that's a wonderful time to ask questions like, how is morale here, right? What kind of clients will I represent? How do you make partner? Instead, all I could think to ask her, I just looked at her and said, "Tell me how much it pays." I said that. And you're not supposed to ask that in an interview, obviously. And she looks at me kind of befuddled by that and goes through the comp structure. And it was amazing. And by the end of it, I looked at her, I said, "That's great, I'll take it." She goes, "I'm not offering you a job. This is just an interview." She goes, "What's wrong with you?" She goes, "I really like you. You're kind of a nice guy." She goes, "I want you to get this job, but I cannot send you down the hall. You look really nervous. Do you need to go to the bathroom?" Well, I have a 2-year-old at home, and I have a 5-year-old at home. And that's a question I ask every hour on the hour. Like, "Look, y'all, we got to go to the store. Anyone need to go potty?" I mean, I ask that question all day long. Just I was 25 and asked if I needed to go potty in a job interview. So I said yes. Because I had to get out of there. She goes, "Go down to the hall, take a right. There it is. Nice to meet you." So I go down the hall, I take a right, and here's this bathroom. But standing in front of this bathroom is this man. He's a lawyer there. He's a young guy. You can always tell. Young guy, full sweat, losing all his hair. He's like 25 years old, right? And he's blocking the bathroom door. And I can't get by. Well, normally if I was at a Broncos game or something, you muscle your way past him. But this is a job interview. So I stare at him. And he stares at me, and nobody's moving. And finally, he points at my chest, and he goes, you, I'm looking for you. And then he gets behind me and follows me into the bathroom like we were going to fight. You ever had someone like that follow you into a bathroom at a job interview? Anybody? So that's weird enough. So I just go to the sink. I start washing my hands, and he comes up and gets really close to me. He puts his arm around me. So now it's getting weirder. You ever had someone touch you in a bathroom? Anybody? And women laugh. Women always laugh at this. Let me tell you, women, about a guy's bathroom. We don't talk. We don't touch. You ever touched a guy in a bathroom? Never? Very rare. So this guy's got his arm around me, and it gets worse. You're like, how could it get worse? He starts to whisper into my ear. And there's no reason to whisper because nobody's in there. And he goes, your name's Corey, right? And he's creepy. And I look back at him, and the only thing I could think to say was, yes. I mean, he had more information than I did. He goes, you went to Duke Law School. That's you. And I looked at him, and yeah, that's me. He goes, well, my name is Scott, and I went to law school there too. And we're supposed to stick together. We're alums. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. He goes, I'm going to save your life. And he leans in and he goes, don't come work here. I looked at him, what? He goes, man, you're going to hate these people. And over time, they're going to grow to hate you. I'm like, they don't even know me. They're going to hate me. They don't even know me. He goes, every family vacation you ever plan is going to get canceled, right? He goes, you're going to keep a suitcase behind your door. They're going to pay you a lot of money, but that's a trick. Interesting words. And he goes, don't fall for it. You're smarter than that. And he took his arm off me, and he goes, just run, man. and he literally ran out the door. And I never saw that guy again the rest of the interview because you don't put Scott on the official interview team. So he leaves, and I just look into the mirror, and I'm the only one in there. And a lot of you in this room are going, well, that's a red flag, right? Is that what you're saying? Like, Corey, that's a red flag. You didn't take that job, right? Of course I did. Because I justified him away, and I said, he's a lone wolf. He's jaded. Every organization has someone like that. I just found the guy who hates the place. I just happened to run into him in the bathroom. What are the odds? Well, can we just do some math here? What are the odds that I run into that guy in the bathroom? They're very low. If I was running a law firm and my employees were walking into bathrooms telling applicants the place sucked, I would fire those people, would you? What does it mean more philosophically than that? That guy's telling the truth. Well, why would he risk his career to lie to me? But I just justified it away. They offered me the job about a week later. I said yes. 6 months into that job, I had slept in my office chair for a week. We were doing this huge IPO, and when that happens, a lot of you know this, nobody goes home. And all the people from the company are there, and the board of directors, everybody's there, and nobody goes home. But there's not always something to do. So at 3 in the morning, I'm just wandering the halls, and this was a Monday, and I noticed something. Wait, my boss is here, and my boss's boss is still here. Nobody went home. Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way through Friday, same thing. Got to be the weekend, same thing. So I sat down at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning at the hall outside of the partners' offices, and I'm wanting to cry. I mean, I want to quit this job. I said, I need to quit. Oh my gosh, that guy from the bathroom was right. You ever had an epiphany moment with that sentence? And so, but wait a second, I can't quit because I just went through all this, gauntlet to get here. And so before you quit a job like that, you have to call somebody who loves you. And so I had just gotten married. So I want you to picture this conversation from your brand new spouse, okay? Brand new. I said, honey, how's it going? I know it's late. I had to call you. I'm never home. I hate this job. I'm going to quit. Are you okay if I quit? And if you met my wife, she's super cool. She's nice. She's friendly. That's why I married her. She's cool. But not this night. So I said that. She says back to me, I'm sorry, what did you say? You say you want to quit this job that your friends would love to have? She goes, Corey, I had no intention on marrying a quitter. So that just happened. And I'm like, well, damn. And if I knew you were going to say that, I would have called my mom. But I would have called someone else, right? Then she says to me, you can't quit. What else do you know how to do? And I'm like, do you love me? But she's making a good point. Her point is, look, man, you are underqualified and overpaid. Why don't you just suck it up and stay? Maybe it'll get better. And so I agreed to do that. I stayed for 6 more months. That was my commitment to her. On the year anniversary of the day I started that job, I drove in, I went to my desk, I typed up my letter of resignation. Like 2 pages or whatever. And I printed it to the office printer. When you do that, you run out there, you go get it fast. I folded it up like it was supposed to be secret. I put it in a little envelope, and I'm walking over to quit. And my hand is shaking. I'm scared. And this guy sees me. His name's Mark. He's the guy I have to talk to. I said, hey, Mark. He goes, hey. He goes, how's it going? What's that in your hand? So here we go. And I had a whole speech planned. And he goes, what do you want to say to me? I said, Mark, I'm going to quit, man. And he gets out of his chair, and he runs over to me as fast as he can, gets right in my face and goes, "Shut up, Corey, you shut up. Nobody quits this law firm." Then he took the letter out of my hand, ripped it in half, and threw it away. He's like, "We done?" They never taught me in business school what to do when someone rips up your letter of resignation and throws it away. I like to read John Grisham books, so I'm kind of like, can I leave? Like, is there someone behind me with a gun? So I got mad because I thought that was rude. I mean, I just spent 45 minutes. If I did that to one of my students, they turn in a paper and I just go, "Nah, it sucks," and rip it up. Like, that'd be therapy. So I said, "Mark, everybody at this law firm is completely and utterly miserable." And he looks me right in the eyes and he's like, "Yeah, I know. I just told you that every single person that works for you hates their life." He's like, "Yeah, I know." I said, "These people are on their 5th marriage here, Mark." And he goes, "I know." He goes, "You're not listening to me." He goes, "Everybody who works here wants to quit. I know that. Of course they hate it. You think I don't know that? What I said to you is nobody actually quits." He goes, "And there's 2 reasons why. One, everybody's broke. They don't have any money." And I said, "These partners make $1 million a year. What do you mean?" And he goes, "It doesn't matter how much we pay them. They always spend more than we pay them," which is like a tagline for America, right? I just thought if you made $1 million a year, you'd be okay. But they made money. They spent money. I mean, it's expensive life. They were trapped. And tell this to every young person in your life. If you can live within your means, you will retain the flexibility to quit a job you hate. And that's a powerful thing, man. These lawyers just missed it. And he said the second reason no one quits is they have too much pride. And here's the metaphor I used to describe this. They had climbed the ladder of success. They got to the top. They looked down, and they realized their ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. So pride doesn't allow you to climb back down, pick it up, move it over here, climb back up to the other one. They didn't want to. So I looked at my letter in the trash, I looked at him, and I just left. I walked out. So I get a phone call from the University of Denver a little while later, and I didn't know anybody there at this time. This guy's name was John. I'd never met him before. And he goes, "Corey, is this you?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Someone died in the ethics department down here." That's all he said to me. I'm like, "Well, John, nice to meet you." "Oh my gosh, that's terrible. The student died. I mean, that's terrible. Why are you calling me?" And he goes, "I should have been more clear. It wasn't a student. It was a professor who died. And he was here for 60 years, and he told me who it was." I'm like, "Oh, man, I had that guy when I was an undergrad, and he was old then." Like, this guy had a good run. And he died. It's the middle of the term. He goes, "We need a teacher." He goes, "You want to be a teacher?" And I didn't want to be a teacher. You might as well ask me to be an astronaut. Like, I wasn't interested in that. And I said, "No, thanks, John." He goes, "Please come down here. There's no one else on my list." So I got a job because no one else applied. I don't tell that to my students. That wasn't in the intro. And I said, "No, thanks. It's bad karma." "When did he die?" And he's like, "He died last week." I'm like, "John, that's terrible karma. I'm just making stuff up." He goes, "No, it's not." He goes, "Think about it like this." He goes, "Bad for him, but good for you." And I'm like, what kind of ethics department is this? Like, a bunch of pricks. What do you mean bad for him? Like, really bad. He just died. But you do these things for your alma mater, right? So I go down to this interview. But a quick segue, and this may be the second most important thing I'm going to say to you today. Y'all believe in a calling in life where your passions and your talents collide? And it's a religious thing, but it doesn't have to be. Everyone can think this way. If you find the place in your life where your passions and your talents collide, that's where you will have maximum impact. And I got to be honest with you, being a teacher is mine. I'm on this earth to do this. I wasn't on this earth to be a lawyer because I wasn't very good at it and I didn't love it, right? Why did I choose to do it? And I watch a ton of people go down that path. And they do it anyway because the world lies to them and tells them to do it, right? But it wasn't for me. But if you can find that talent and passion, that collision place, you will never work a day in your life. And it doesn't mean you're not tired. I'm tired every day. I've got 2 kids. My life is hard, but I never once say, I don't want to go to work today. I always do. I'm just tired. When I was at my law firm, I was tired every day and didn't want to go to work. Now, let me be clear for this audience. I would go to law school 10 times out of 10. I would go back to law school every time because that was awesome for me. You become smart. Nothing scares you. I just got greedy with my job. It's not a law school problem. It was a greed problem for me and a pride problem for me, right? So I go down to this interview, but I didn't know any of this calling stuff at the time. So we sit down, and he goes, you're going to have to teach ethics. Tell me what you know about ethics. And I looked back at him, and I said, John, I don't know anything about ethics, man. I went to law school. Like, didn't really come up. Again, I'm not real good in interviews. It's not the good answer. If someone asks you what you know about ethics, here's your CLA moment. If someone asks you what you know about ethics, nothing is the wrong answer, right? He goes, well, I'm a lawyer too, Corey. There's an ethics class in law school. How'd you get out of taking it? And I said, no, I had to take it. You asked me what I knew about ethics. Like, none. So here's my law ethics class. Tell me if some of this is familiar to some of you. The professor walks in, slams a 1,000-page book on the desk and says something to this effect. This is the most important class you'll ever take in law school. It's ethics. I need you to read this book. And in this book are a bunch of rules. And if you could just memorize these rules, okay, think about these rules, you'll be an ethical attorney too. But if that doesn't work for you, in the back of this book are a bunch of cases about lawyers gone rogue. And he goes, don't go rogue, memorize these rules, you'll be okay. And I'm sitting there going, it can't be that easy. Like, memorize some stuff and I'll be a good person, right? But I'll go with it. You're smarter than I am. So he goes, rule number 1, write this down. He goes, rule number 1, don't have sex with your clients. And everyone's writing it down, the whole room. And halfway through, I just stopped. And it's not because I was like, well, damn it. I was more just like, duh. Do I really need to write this down? So I just checked it off. He said, rule number 2, don't steal your client's money. You'll have access to a bank account that has their money. And I'm like, okay. 3, don't call a guilty witness to the stand and start asking them questions. I mean, and I'm sitting there going, can you email me this list? I certainly don't need to sit here for 17 weeks and learn this. And I wouldn't call myself a good person at that point in my life, but this wasn't hard. There wasn't one rule where I said, it's going to be hard for me to be a lawyer now that I can't do this. Nothing. I walked out of that class 17 weeks later. I was the exact same person I was the day I walked in. I wasn't worse, I was the same. My wife went to medical school. Guess what happens in medical school? There's a required ethics class where they give you a book and tell you to memorize rules and you will become an ethical physician. Anyone want to guess what rule number 1 was in my wife's class? Don't have sex with your patients. They just changed the word. Now let me say this to you. I am the husband of a doctor and I love that rule. I think that's a really good rule. I just think it's probably a little late to teach it in someone's life. Then they said, don't commit Medicare and Medicaid fraud. Then they said, don't cut off the wrong leg in surgery. Yeah, and I said, honey, what the hell? Does this happen? And she's like, all the time. Apparently that happens all the time, which proves my point that the ethics class is not working, right? I will say this to you as an ethics professor, okay? So prepare yourself for this sentence. I don't believe any ethics class in and of itself has any value. I don't believe a session like this in and of itself has any value. Why? Because how come so many lawyers and doctors still cheat? They've all taken the ethics class. How come so many engineers still cheat? How come so many accountants still cheat? They all have ethics training. Every year we have to get X amount of CLE credits. How come there's so much cheating? How come 70% of undergraduates break the honor code? Right? Let's take this to your world. Do you have core values where you work? Just raise your hand if your place of employment has core values. Okay, what about a mission statement? Okay, I'm going to say this and let this fall on your ears as it may. Congratulations, so did Enron. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. Congratulations, so did Tyco. So did WorldCom. Go home and Google core values of any company that's ever cheated. And you will find beautiful statements. But you know what those are? Just words on a piece of paper. Because we have skipped a step as a society. We have convinced ourselves, don't worry, our professionals have ethics training. And then the stakeholders in our lives kind of just go, okay, cool. And then we let them down, right? The step we have skipped is this. Every single one of you in this room has to first believe in your heart that being a good person matters. Do you believe that? Because if you don't really, truly believe that, I will never convince you with an hour presentation. And no ethics class will convince you. And you know what your core values are going to be tomorrow when you go to work? Words on a piece of paper. Because that's what it was to Enron. I have these core values. They make me take them in my wallet. But I want my stock options to vest. I want to retire. I want to move up. It always gets outweighed. My students say, I know I shouldn't cheat because I have an honor code, but everyone else is cheating. Everyone else is getting A's, right? And go down this list. My parents will kill me. College is expensive. I need a job. Do you see what happens? This always outweighs this. And the only way you can make it a fair fight is if in your heart you actually believe that your character and your integrity matters. And if you do that, I'm not telling you that it wins. I'm telling you that the fight is now fair. Here's the problem. Everybody thinks they're a good person. Have you noticed that? So if I have a room of thousands of people, I will say, raise your hand if you believe yourself to be a high character person. That's all I'll say. And to that question, how many hands go up do you think? All. And if I ask that of you today, wouldn't you raise your hand? Everyone would be like, yeah, sure, okay. Then I say, I've got a microphone. I'm going to walk over to somebody. And I want you to keep your hand up if and only if you can define for us what it means to be a high character person. But if you can't, I want you to put your hand down. And then how many hands go down, do you think? Every hand in every room. In 15 years, I've yet to have one person answer that question for me. publicly. So I went home and looked it up, and it's called attribution theory, which is human beings think they're much better than they actually are at stuff they're supposed to be good at. Being a good person, being honest, kind, compassionate, courageous. Human beings are worse than they think they are at stuff they're not supposed to do. Lie, cheat, steal, right? So if I say to you, hey, are you a liar? Your inclination is going to be no, I'm not that, but you probably are worse than you think you are. It's attribution theory, right? But you would agree with me that 100% of us aren't high moral character people, yet 100% of people identify as such. So there's a disconnect there. So here's how I teach ethics. And this story totally changed my life. I'm sitting in a room in University of Denver, and I'm in the front row. I'm right here. And in comes John Bogle. Do you know that name? So Jack Bogle basically founded the mutual fund industry. Interesting guy. Vanguard Mutual Funds, the finance guy, cool guy. And so I want to hear him talk about the economy and whatever. And he gets up on stage and he says, tonight, I'm going to tell you a story about a dog. And we looked at each other like, did he say Jobs? I don't want to hear about a dog. What are we doing? But you can't leave. That's John Bogle. You sit there and you listen. And he goes, this is Cash the Racing Greyhound. And he puts a picture up on the screen. The most famous racing dog of all time has won tens of millions of dollars for his owner. Well, the night before the biggest race of this dog's life, they're on the patio and they're talking. And she looks at him and says, you ready to run tomorrow? Because we're going to win. And everybody's here to watch. And you're the best. And the dog looks at her and says, I have to tell you something. I'm not going to run in that race tomorrow. And I'm retiring. I've been thinking about my life lately. And she's taken aback and she goes, I'm sorry, what did you say? We're going to make all this money tomorrow. We're going to win tomorrow. Everybody's here to see you tomorrow. Are you hurt? And the dog says, I feel great. I'm not hurt. Are you too old? Dog says, I can still win. She says, are you mad at me? I love you, he says. And she tells, why won't you run? Why are you finished? And the dog looks back at her and says, all I've ever done is run and run and run around these little oval tracks. That's all I've ever done. And you know what? It finally occurred to me that those little white rabbits you have us chase, they're not real. And he says that. That's a profound sentence, right? And I didn't get it. And I looked at the guy next to me. I'm like, that's cute, whatever. So he keeps talking. And he finishes his speech with this, and this is where he got me. He says, you can never get enough of what you don't need to truly make you happy. And he leaves. And that started to hit me. And I sat there for an hour in the front row with my head in my hands wanting to cry. Corey, you have a better job than any of your friends. You have more money than any of your friends. You have a more elite education than any of your friends. Everything, go down it, faster car, bigger house. Why aren't you happy? And they kicked me out of the room an hour later, and it was so obvious. MTV had lied to me. I say that to my students, like, what the hell is that? Let me say this to you. The world's lying to you. You realize that, right? The world says accumulate money and you will be happy. Well, I had a lot of money and I wasn't happy. You know the irony is I knew a lot of rich people and they aren't all that happy either. I mean, do you know rich people? I'm sure you do. Are they happy? And the more money that someone has, the happier that they are. It doesn't work like that. Look at Hollywood. It's inversely proportional. And then the world says, if you could just be pretty, if you could just be handsome, if you could just be skinny, if you could just be stronger. And those sentences literally kill my students with eating disorders and fraternity hazing. And it literally, that's what we seek. We tell high school kids, if you could just be more popular, high school would be better. That's a lie. It's not true. If you came to my office at DU, I've got 4 degrees hanging from my wall from a university. And that's cool, right? And then I read this quote once and it said, the diplomas on your wall do not make you a decent human being. Dang it. I paid a lot of money to be happy. So did you. It doesn't work like that. Because you can never get enough. Do you want to know why? There'll always be someone richer than you. Have you noticed that? And you'll just chase. There'll always be someone better looking than you. There'll always be someone smarter than you. There'll always be someone with faster cars, bigger. There'll always be someone that'll beat you. And you can never get enough of that to make you happy. Now, I'm not saying any of that stuff is bad because I don't find any of that stuff to be bad. I think it's a morally neutral thing and it just depends how we use it. So money's only bad when it defines you. I hope everyone in this room becomes a millionaire. Life's a lot easier if you have $1 million. Once money defines you, though, you'll never win. You will constantly chase. And it's good to be good looking. In this book, I've got a whole chapter on what's called the beauty premium, which means good-looking people make a lot more money over a lifetime than people who aren't, however they measure that. So do I think it's good to be good-looking? Yeah, sure, it will help you until your looks define you, and then you've already lost. I want you to encourage every young person in your life to go to as much school as they can because I think it's a tough world now if you don't. But the thing is, you cannot rely on that to make you happy. Just tell them it won't work. You can get straight A's all day long, and it will not long-term make you happy. Here's the analogy I use, okay? How many of you love Thanksgiving dinner? Who loves Thanksgiving? I love it. Who loves mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving dinner? It's my favorite part. Let's say one year I called my mom and said, hey, we're coming home for Thanksgiving. How's everyone? And she'll say, fine. And I'll say, how are the mashed potatoes? Let's just say I asked that. I might ask that. And let's say one year she says to me, I got to tell you something, there's not going to be any this year. They went bad. I don't have time to get any more, but we'll see you Thursday. Am I then going to say to her, I can't believe you do that to me? No mashed potatoes. I will not see you Thursday. We're going to go to Cracker Barrel or whatever. Who would do that? You don't go home for Thanksgiving for the mashed potatoes. You go home for Thanksgiving because your family is there and people you love are there and it's home. That's why you go. But if I got there Thursday and for some miraculous reason there were mashed potatoes there, I'd eat as many as I could. But can we be clear? No one goes for that reason. So can I ask you a question? It's going to cut kind of deep for some of you. Are you going to your life for the mashed potatoes? Are you? I mean, picture this analogy. You're all alone in a room, all by yourself, with an unlimited amount of mashed potatoes and a spoon. For how long would that be fun? Some of you are like, that'd be fun, for like 10 minutes. You could gorge yourself on mashed potatoes and you never want to see another one. What are we getting up every day doing? So in my story, money and looks and all that stuff, education is a fake rabbit. It's not bad, it's just fake. It doesn't get you to your ultimate goal. Because if I was to pin every one of you down in a moment of complete honesty and ask you what your ultimate goal is in life, I bet you would look back at me and say, hey, I want to be authentically happy. Wouldn't you? Or you'd look back at me and you'd say something like, I want to live a life of meaning, Professor. Wouldn't you say that to me? And it's really tough to do if that's all you're chasing. It's fake. So what's real? And here's the meat of the talk. Okay, here's your CLE in a nutshell. People want three things. This is what makes people happy. And the cool thing about my job is I just get to talk to people. I don't care what you look like. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what your background is. We're just people. And we're the same when it comes to this. Number one, everyone I've ever met craves peace and contentment in their hearts. I've never met a person who doesn't. So the better way to ask that is, do you wake up happy? Because Americans get asked a question by a magazine every year. I love it. It says, in the morning when you wake up, do you genuinely and consistently wake up happy? What a great question. Notice what it's not asking. It doesn't say, do you wake up tired? That's a stupid question. Don't ask me that every day. Do you sometimes have a bad day, a bad week, a bad month? I got bad weeks all the time. Anybody else? Let's chalk that up to being human. That's a stupid question. But to be fair, they didn't ask that question. They said, in your heart, genuinely, over long periods of time, consistently, do you wake up happy? And that's a fair question. We can be asked that question because it balances out your good days and bad days and it gives you you. And 67% of Americans, every time asked that question, say no. No, I don't. And how is that even possible in this country? Now I teach constitutional law. So I'm neck deep in the politics of this country. I'm following the Supreme Court. Let me say this to you, and I can't be more clear about this. America will break your heart. But there are billions of people all across this earth who would love to have our bad days. And guess what? Those two things can be true at the same time. And I will say this to you, and I don't know anybody in this room. If you can't find a way to genuinely and consistently wake up happy here in America, you are chasing something fake. And I don't know you, but I was too. And you're going to life for the wrong reasons, and it won't make you happy. But we just established that your goal is to be happy, so something's got to change. But I figured out how this happens to people, and I figured this out in Paris. So we went on a baby moon, which is, you're about to have a baby, and you'll never get to go anywhere fun ever again. So we don't go to Paris anymore. We go to Utah, which is fine. I love Utah. It's just different, right? So my wife and I go to, you're like, I'm from Utah. So my wife and I go to Paris. And you go to all these art museums in Paris. And I'm not an art person, but you just have to go. Well, when you get to these museums, there are rules. Anyone been to an art museum in Paris? Okay, you can't talk, remember? You can't eat, you can't drink, you can't be on your phone, you can't do anything. And this is hard for me because I like to talk. And I don't like art. And so here we are. So I'm walking around, and we go to this place called the Musée d'Orangerie. You been there? And all the Monets hang there. It's really cool. So we get to this one place. I don't know what it was. There was some painting there. It's big as this screen. And literally, it was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. You're like, how can you say that? You're not an art person. You just said that. I have eyes. I just looked at it. I don't know. It looked like someone put on a blindfold and took an ice cream scoop and just started throwing colors at kids, wildly throwing colors at a kid. It's hideous. But this is Paris, and you're not allowed to say that. So everyone gathers around this painting, and they go, oh my gosh, it's so stunningly beautiful. I can't believe it. And I'm sitting there going, I can't take this anymore. So I looked at my wife. I'm like, it's ugly. And she's like, I know, shut up. She's not listening. So I look at this French guy. I'm like, hey, man, it's ugly. And he goes, monsieur. He doesn't speak English. And so he's talking to me in French, and I'm talking to him in English. And the guard sees this happening. Well, you can't talk. You can't stand around art and make fun of it. You just can't. So he comes walking over. And my wife sees him coming. He's way over there. She's like, oh, great. Here he comes. When he gets over here, he's going to yell at you. Here's what you do. You just lie. You tell him you like it, and we'll leave. I'm an ethics professor. She's like, just lie to this guy. So he comes walking over. And in broken English, he goes, I'm sorry, sir, it seems to me that you are laughing at that painting. He goes, no one ever laughs at that painting. Do you like it? And I'm not going to lie. And she's kicking me. And I looked at him. I go, hey, man, I don't like it. I think it's ugly. It's giving me a headache. And it just really sucks, in my opinion. And she kicks me right in the knee. And he goes, I'm sorry, my English isn't very good. Did you just say that painting sucks? And I go, yeah. He goes, no one's ever said that to me before. And she's sitting over here going, wonder why, I'm married to an idiot. What are we doing? And he goes, but since you said that, I'm going to let you in a little secret. And he leans in and he goes, did you know that's every color imaginable thrown blindly onto a canvas? And I'm like, I was right. Seriously, I was right? Cool. He goes, the artist's intention is for it to suck. He goes, the whole point is for it to depict the barrenness of an overly busy life. Uh-oh, that's pretty good. I went home and looked it up. That's Socrates, most famous philosopher of all time. Beware the barrenness of an overly busy life. And I looked at that painting and I said, no wonder that's giving me a headache. That's my life. I mean, I already know it's your life too. I already know. We have become a society of box checkers, haven't we? And we just check as many boxes as we can to get to some artificial goal. And once we meet that goal, we don't even care about it anymore. We kick it away. And now we got more and more. My students are this way too. And we just check meaningless boxes to some goal. We don't even care about it anymore. When was the last time you were super busy and at the same time really lonely? And I will say this to you, if you're skeptical right now. If Socrates says something, it's probably right. So here's my advice. Why don't each of us check fewer but more meaningful boxes? That should be a goal in your life. Fewer but more meaningful boxes. And I've got a list of priorities. I'm going to make you make one a little bit later. And if something doesn't hit my 10th priority, if it's not 1 through 10 for me, I don't do it anymore. Unless the government makes me. I'll go to jury duty. I just got my notice. Dang it. I'll do it. I'll buy health insurance and I'll, whatever else they ask me to do. I'll pay taxes. Your government doesn't ask much, right? I'll do that. And if something's not on that list and not on my list, I say no. I live on a golf course. I live on a beautiful golf course. I am the worst golfer in the neighborhood. So here's the thing. No one even asked me to play. Like they drive by my house like, we need a fourth, man. There's 3 of us. Should we get Corey? They're like, nah. We'll just pick up the random guy at the first tee. I suck at golf. I don't have time. I like to build furniture for my kids. I suck at it. I hope when they sit on it, it doesn't break. I don't have time. And you know what? I don't do it anymore. And maybe later in my life, I'll find time to do it. But I don't want a barren life anymore. I don't want that for some artificial goal. You know what? That won't make me happy anyway. So just seriously, I want you to ask yourself, do you have peace? And you will not find peace with a busy life. Yet that's the thing that everybody wants. The second thing that everybody wants is a small group of really good friends. Notice I didn't say a huge group of crappy friends. Those two things are not synonymous. It's the Facebook effect. I keep writing Facebook emails. And no one ever writes me back because I always start off by saying, hey, I'm an ethics professor. And as soon as you hear that, you delete it. But I say, you should change that friends button on your page to an acquaintances at best button. That's really what it is. I don't have 4,700 friends on Facebook. I don't even know those people. If someone requests me, I'm just like, you're in. I don't care. But it tricks us into thinking we need a lot of friends. We need this huge circle of people around us. No, you don't. You know what you need? 5. You need 5 people who would rush into your life when everybody else rushes out. Do you have that? But what I have found from people is they think they do, and when it all goes bad, nobody's there. And you say the same thing to me as an 8th grader. When I was rolling in life, everything was great. Then something bad happened. And your bad is different from their bad, right? Yours is, I got laid off. We filed for bankruptcy. I got a divorce. Your bad is different than their bad. Then you say, I have people in my life who won't even talk to me anymore, and some of those people are in my family, and here's where you say the exact same next sentence. And I thought I had more friends than that. It's the same thing. So I just want to ask you, be sure. Do you have 5 people who would rush into your life if the worst thing ever happened? If you were getting married tomorrow, who would be your 5 people to stand next to you at your wedding? No one has 20 bridesmaids, but you need 5. And I tell all the young people in my life, you get 3. You get 3 till you're 25. Then you can move up to 5. Very few of us have that core group of advisors that gives us really good advice. Look, any politician without a core group of good advisors, a cabinet of good advisors, makes bad decisions. Any executive without a good group of advisors makes bad decisions, right? Who's advising you? And I would chase that far more than money. I really would, y'all. And far more than professional success, because it means far more to your life. And the third thing everybody wants, and this is probably the most important one, is to be good. But he wants to be good. And that doesn't mean if I bring a microphone to you, you can define it for me. It just means everyone in this room was born with a conscience. So it's audience participation time. Ready? Everybody touch your tummy. Just go ahead. I got 15, 20 more minutes. I'll just wait. Y'all remember when this still worked? Remember when your conscience told you right from wrong? I have a 5-year-old at home. Her name is Sophie. She's blonde. She's beautiful. She's a gift from God. I love this kid. But my daughter Sophie lies. And she's the worst liar in the world. When Sophie lies, her body moves. And you know why? It's a visceral reaction in her gut to that lie. And her gut says, Sophie, what are you doing? That's wrong. And it makes her think and move. I look at her, I'm like, Sophie, that doesn't sound right. Are you lying? And she's like, yeah. She just tells me. If I was teaching a class on lying, day 1 is, if you're lying and someone asks you if you're lying, did you lie about lying, right? She doesn't know any of that, because this still works. You want to know what happens when I lie? I just go on with my day. When was the last time you lied? Did it even faze you? See, when she's mean to me, I've counted it. I've taken a time of it. After 3 minutes, she runs up and she hugs my leg. Love you, Daddy. I'm sorry. You forgive me. You know, when I'm mean to somebody, I just send the email. I just finish the meeting. I just drive to work, whatever. When I'm mean to somebody, it barely phases me anymore. You know what that's taught me? Her conscience works and mine is breaking. And this is Aristotle. This isn't me. So we have to find this what he calls the golden mean, where we are courageous and compassionate and honorable and loyal, dependable. We have to find these things. And that's the only way, he would say, to live what he calls a fulfilled and happy life. So how's your character? Are we filling our lives with good things? It's a garbage in, garbage out system. If you feed it garbage, out will come garbage in. But here's the thing. Your conscience isn't designed to put out garbage like that. So we put it in garbage, out comes garbage, and we wonder why we aren't happy. Well, that's why. That's why. So if you agree with me to this point, I told you what I said before was the second most important thing. I'm about to tell you the most important thing you hear all year. I promise. Okay? You have to get your priorities straight. So here's your homework. You're going to go home. You're going to take a piece of paper. I want you to draw a line straight down the middle. On the left-hand side of that paper at the very top, you draw a heart. Right-hand side of that paper at the very top, you draw a picture of you. Underneath that heart, you have 10 blanks. Underneath that picture of you, you have 10 blanks. In those 10 blanks, underneath that heart, I want you to list your priorities as your heart desires them. So in my heart, in a perfect world, I would get up every day and do what first? Write that down. I would do what fourth, what 10th. And let me just read your mind. Remember, we're all kind of the same. I bet you're thinking right now things like family. Am I right? Friends, work, health. We're all kind of the same. Where we differ are the margins. And someone will put opera, and someone will put rock climbing, and someone will put traveling. And I don't care what you put. It's your list, right? But you only get 10. Beneath that 10 is a thick line. Then, underneath that heart, or underneath that picture of you, you list your priorities 1 through 10 as you currently live your life. So I want this, but I do all this. And you're going to have the same words over here, but they're just going to be in different order. It's all going to be jumbled. So here's the key to the whole thing. You take your pen and you connect similar words with a line. You just start connecting family to family and work to work and health to health. Then hang it on your fridge, step back and look at it. And here's what you're looking for desperately. Horizontally parallel lines. What your heart wants, your life gives. What your heart wants, your life gives. And that's what you want all the way down the sheet. And if I saw this on your sheet, I could bet you're a pretty happy person. If I saw your homework and it looked like this, it would tell me everything I need to know about your life. There's no way you can be happy if this is your chart. I could charge people $20. I could give them this homework. I could say, bring this back to me. Okay? You got to do it honestly. Bring it back to me. And I could tell you beyond a reasonable doubt whether you are happy or not without ever having met you. I wouldn't even need to meet you. I would need to know nothing about you. Your chart would tell me everything. Now, here's how you structure this list. And this is where I get in trouble, and people yell at me for this, and they send me mean emails, and they can't fire me. I have tenure, so who cares? I'm going to say this anyway. And I've learned this from, I have stood in front of 1 million people. Literally, 1 million people. I have stood here, they've sat there. And this is what they have told me. So this is the wisdom of crowds. No one in their heart wants their job in the top 3. They don't. You know what those spots are reserved for? People. People want people there. If you're religious, that's what people want, and then they want their workforce. People who are really good at their jobs and who make an impact in this world want their job high. They just don't want it higher than that. Because their heart just doesn't want that. They want those people there first. And until you get there, you will have this disconnect. And I'm going to prove this to you. My wife is a trauma surgeon. So she sees people on their literal deathbeds. And no one has ever on their deathbed looked at my wife and said, Doctor, I'm dying, and I wish I would have worked a little harder. Never. Doctor, I'm dying, and I wish I would have made a little more money. Wish I would have been better looking, traveled more, whatever. They never say that. They look at her every time and they say, Doctor, I'm dying, and I wish I would have been a better person. And then they elaborate and say things like, wish I would have been a better dad. Hey, gentlemen, does that ring true in this room? Wish I would have been a better mom, a better friend. The only time work ever comes up is when they say, wish I would have been nicer to the people that worked with me and for me. That's it. And so she kept coming home and she goes, you've got to work this into your speech. This keeps happening to me. And so I wanted to relate it to law. And in law, there's a concept called hearsay. And y'all know this. If you're a lawyer or not, you've seen Law and Order, right? Hearsay is, I hear you say something. I can't go into court and testify that you said it. I got to find you. It's more reliable if you say it. If you ever played a game of telephone, by the time it gets to the third person, it's gibberish. I got to go to the source. The problem is, you can't always find a witness. Witnesses disappear. Witnesses die. But trials have to go on. So they have to make exceptions to the hearsay rule, but they don't want to because reliable testimony is so important. So there's only a few. One of them is called a dying declaration, which is if I hear you say something and you're in the process of dying, I can go into court and testify. The judge has to let me. Why? They've done study after study after study that proves what someone says on her deathbed is true. People on their deathbeds don't lie. So listen very carefully to me until people start telling my wife on their deathbeds that they wish they would have worked harder and had more money and been more professionally successful. Until they tell her that, I'm right. And you're welcome. You're welcome. And deep in your soul, you know I'm right. So what are you going to do about it, right? So I get questions all the time like, hey man, I know you're right, but if I do what you say, my stock options won't vest. I had a guy say that to me. Or I'll get fired or I won't get promoted. Totally, you're right. It's going to cost you. The bottom line is if you take this philosophy in your life, it will cost you. So let me tell you mine, because I would never ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. I'm a religious guy. I love my wife. I love my kids. You tell me where my job goes. I mean, if we're just being honest, where does my job go? Has to go forth. I have no other spot for it above. Now, when I was at my law firm, I watched what they did to people, and they were trying to be cool, and I was just a kid, so I was just kind of observing this from afar, but they would say to somebody, we don't care which of these 3 things goes, just pick one. And they were trying to be cool because they were letting the lawyer pick. So here's what the lawyer would do. The first thing to go was always the marriage. The second thing to go was always their faith, and the third thing to go was always their relationship with their kids, which, by the way, what does that tell you about the power of a parent? Seriously. And you know what these lawyers were left with? A really high-paying job. And that's it. And I wasn't going to do that to myself. It would be impossible for me to quantify for you the amount of ways this philosophy has cost me in my life. It has cost me promotions. It's cost me raises. It's cost me awards. Sometimes I get nominated for an award. I'm the only one nominated. I go to the ceremony. No award given. Try that hat on. Like, I couldn't even beat myself to win the award, right? Just a couple weeks ago, I lost a promotion. It's going to cost me $1 million over the rest of my career. I lose all the time. I'll never teach at Harvard. There's a lot of things I won't get to do. but I'm the happiest married man at the whole school. You know what else? I'm the best dad at that whole school. I'd bet my life on it. So put this in your notes. In life, you choose. You have to choose. Notice I didn't conflate those things. I didn't put my marriage equal to my kids. I didn't throw it all into one bundle. If you start combining things, something's going to give. And what always gives in corporate America is family. Job never gives. Job needs to give sometimes. It's not like I don't work hard. It's just job needs to give. I was with these cops, really cool audience, room full of cops, like 500 cops in uniforms, and they're sitting there, and I say this, and afterwards I'm signing books, and they all want a book, and it's a cool audience. They're super happy. Well, halfway through this line is this cop, and that's just where he ended up, and he's not happy. He does not want a book. He wants to yell at me. So he gets up there and he goes, I cannot believe you said that. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I can't believe you said that. My partner's name is Jeff, and he just left. He left this conference. You can't leave. The chief won't let you leave, and he just left. And he's going to get fired. They're not going to let him come back. I cannot believe you said that. I'm like, what did I say? I have no idea what you're talking about. Where did Jeff go? And he goes, Jeff went home to fix his marriage. Get out of my line. You don't get a book. Good for Jeff. Because I will say this to you. If Jeff gets to come back, and he should, he'll be a better cop. The kind of cop we want on the force. Jeff gets to come back. So let me say this to you. Everyone in this room who supervises other people, if one of your employees needs to go home and fix their marriage, you let them. That is not illegal. It's illegal to not hire someone because they're religious. It's illegal to fire someone because they're black. It's not illegal under employment law to care about your employees' lives. And I want you to plug deeply into that. Because they'll come back better for you. They'll come back better because everyone's priorities will now be in sync. Now, last point on this, I still work really hard. I can't afford not to. I can't stand up here in front of you and not know what I'm talking about. I can't teach these classes and not be, this is hard. My job is fourth. It just doesn't come ahead of them. Here's the thing. If you were to look up the word priorities in the dictionary, here's what it would not say. Amount of time you spend on something. It doesn't say that. It says what means the most to you. Don't conflate those two things. I spend way more time at work than I spend having dinner with my kids. It's just when those two things conflict, most of the time, not always, my kids win. Not always. And it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. But I want you to go home and I want you to make that list. And I want you to always reflect back to your ultimate goal, which is this deep happiness, this life of fulfillment. But it will cost you. Last couple points from me. Because my wife is this way. Sometimes people just need someone to put them on a starting line. Because a lot of you right now are looking at me like, wait a second, man. You are asking me to change my entire life. I mean, that's how you're looking at me, right? You're telling me that I need to wake up happy? And you're telling me that I need a new group of friends? I don't have any. And you want me to fix my character? I don't even think about that. And my priorities are all screwed up. And if I do what you say, Corey, it's going to take me years. And my answer to that is, yeah, of course it will. There are no shortcuts to any place worth going. But you know what I can do today? I can take you and help put you on a starting line. And so, again, back to my wife. She went to Cornell Medical School, but she needed me to tell her she could be a doctor, right? So with ethics, a lot of people need that. So here's my starting line. I'm going to give you 3 really quick things you can do every day to start you on this other path. And I stole this from Jimmy Valvano, so I can't take credit for it. And some of you know him, famous basketball coach, and he ended up dying of cancer. But what I have found is when someone's dying and that person is talking, you listen. Listen deeply to those people. So he gets up on stage and he says, every person every day should do 3 things. They should think, and they should laugh, and they should have their emotions stirred. He said, you do that, that's a full day. That's all you need. So let's go through his list, okay? Do you think every day? And don't reflexively say yes to me. Do you really think about important things every day? Let me give you another quote from Socrates. Wisdom begins in wonder. Break that down. If you never wonder about anything, you'll never become wise. In our society, what we're starting to lack is people wondering about important things because of all the box checking, right? I am explaining basic civics to my undergraduates, and I teach at the best business school in the 6-state region, and my students are clueless. And I say to them, I'm like, don't you talk about this important stuff at home with your parents? And they laugh at me. They go, dinner with my parents, hanging out with my parents. No, we haven't done that since I was 6. What a wasted opportunity. Or they say, we can't talk about politics at my house. Listen, if you say that about your house, you're doing it wrong. Of course you can. You're just doing it wrong. I read this book on the Kennedys. So Jack Kennedy, you've seen the whole family. Old man Kennedy at dinner every night made those kids talk about something controversial. Every night they had to learn how to do it, and they turned out okay, right? You're just doing it wrong. I have no choice but to study this stuff all the time. I could talk to you about abortion for 8 hours. I mean, I don't want to, but I could. And by the end of that conversation, I still wouldn't be sure I was right. I could talk to you about immigration for 8 hours and not be sure I'm right, because what I have learned is the more I study this stuff, the less sure I am. And what I have also learned is the people who know they're right know nothing about it. And as a society, if we don't learn to think together, we are just going to separate like this, and break at the seams. And then you'll have 50% of the country that hates the other 50. We're almost there. And do you want that? So instead, let's wonder about stuff and be able to talk about it. I went to this little Indian restaurant. I'm by myself in Telluride, Colorado, all by myself. And in comes this family. It's a mom, a dad, and 2 boys, 10 and 12, I don't know, cute family. And I'm right next to them. You can't make this up. So this dad goes, all right, sons, tonight for an hour. This is my night. We're going to talk about Social Security. I'm like, wait, what did that guy just say? And just picture how that would go at your house. Probably the same reaction here. These kids are like, no, Dad, what are you talking about? This is terrible. Let's talk about baseball. And I'm just laughing. The little kid's like, let's talk about snowboarding. And the mom is trying to be cool. She's like, Tom, what are you doing? Let's just talk about baseball. And this dad goes, no, this is my night. We need more dads like that, right? He goes, we're doing this. And so don't ever do this. I listened to their entire conversation. I couldn't help it. It's like a train wreck. So they leave. He kept it to an hour, and they left. And my first thought was, oh, man, that guy didn't know anything about Social Security. These kids are wrongly informed. My next thought was, those are the luckiest 2 kids in the world. They're the luckiest 2 kids in the world because they got some adult in their life who's going to help them think. And yeah, if there was a test on Social Security tomorrow, they'd get Fs. They really would. But in their lives, they're going to be okay. Again, I can't say this enough. Every one of you in this room has to have some young person attached to your life, and you help them wonder. That's all it is. When I read to my kids, I want them to wonder about the story, because I know if they wonder about the story, they're going to want to learn how to read, right? Are you making people in your life wonder? 2, every day have your emotions stirred. Every day I want you to get goosebumps, right? You have to find something that will do that. And if you don't get goosebumps very often, I know what's happening. You're chasing touchdowns. And I want you to chase inches. No one would ever turn on a football game where the teams were just constantly scoring touchdowns. I would never want to watch a football game where the final score was 87-80. How boring. Or turn on a soccer match and it's 21-19. That's not why you watch. You watch a football game because it's 11 of the strongest guys versus 11 of the strongest guys, and they need 1 inch. And sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't. And that's why you watch. And in soccer, sometimes you just need 1 inch of space. And if you get it, you can score a goal. And if not, you don't. And that's why you watch. I went to Clemson, and 850 women in a room. And 8 of them came up to me, and they said, hey, we are the sexual assault prevention group here at Clemson. And our whole goal is to prevent sexual assaults. But we have to tell you something, Professor. It's not working. Statistics are up. And then she looks at me, and she goes, I just need to ask you this. There's no way we're ever going to be able to stop sexual assaults here, right? And I looked back at her, and I said, Daisy, you're right, you won't. She's like, all right, have a nice day. And she's all sad. I said, get back here. And I started pointing at people. You could stop 1, right? She's like, I already did. Well, what did that girl think? Well, she'll never forget me. And I started, you could stop 1, you could stop 1. And she's like, see, what Daisy wanted was a touchdown. But what Daisy needed was some inches. That's all she needed, not a touchdown. I could stop sexual assault tomorrow if enough people cared. Tomorrow. But she can't, right? You got to give enough people to care. But she needed 1 inch. And it reminded me of the story of the starfish. Have y'all heard this? So this girl's on vacation in Mexico, this little girl, 6-year-old girl. And she sees on the beach all these starfish have been thrown in by the tide. And they're on the sand. And she knows, because she learned this in school, that if she doesn't get them back in the water, they'll die. But there's thousands of them. And so she's one by one picking them up, and she's throwing them into the ocean. Well, this businessman sees her. And he's like, what is she doing? And he walks over there and goes up to her and goes, what are you doing? There's thousands of these here. You can't save them all. It doesn't matter. And this little girl bends down, picks one up, looks right at him, throws it in the water and goes, well, it mattered to that one. Yeah. That's how you should look at your life. The inches matter more. If I did, for some reason, lose my job tomorrow, the last thing I would do is go to my office and pull out my resume. Would you? I'd go home, I've got a box full of thank you cards, and I'd just start reading them. Wouldn't you? I'm a teacher for the inches, not the touchdowns. And if I never teach at Harvard, so be it. And if I do, it's mashed potatoes. It's a different way to look at it. And the last thing Jimmy V said is every day you should laugh. Put this in your notes, at yourself. I never used to have to say that, but people are getting dumber. I get emails now, they're like, hey man, I heard you speak at the Brown Palace 6 months ago. I've been laughing at everybody else ever since. It's not working. Like, why would I say that? Did you know the average person farts? We'll edit this out of the tape. 14 times a day. How dare you fart 14 times a day and not be able to laugh at my jokes? But you can't walk around counting farts like, 4. Bad. So I want everyone in this room to think back to the dumbest thing you've ever done. Everyone just, can you remember? Adults are like, I'm not sure. College kids go, yeah, it was last Friday. They just know. All right, so you got that in your mind right now? Then ask yourself this, how can I ever take myself seriously ever again? You did that. Here's mine. I like to ride my bike. So my wife bought me a bike helmet with Bluetooth speakers, and it's cool, but you don't know there's speakers in there because they're Bluetooth, wireless. So I go on this bike ride. I'm listening to a podcast. I get home. The podcast is still going. The bike ride's over. So I put my bike away and look around my garage for something to do because I don't want to take my helmet off. I want to finish listening to this. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to mow my lawn. I mowed my lawn for an hour with my bike helmet on. But my neighbors don't know it has speakers. So everyone was driving by like, hey, safety first. So I go inside. My wife's like, did you just mow the lawn with your bike helmet on? I've done it 6 times since. Just whatever. We got to laugh at the dumb things we do, or else life is way too hard. People say to me, how dare you say that, Corey? Life's too hard to laugh like that. And when they say that to me, here's my response. You're half right, mostly wrong. Like, life is way too hard not to laugh like that. And if you can't laugh like that, enjoy your midlife crisis, man. You've earned it. Enjoy your stress attack. So I'll leave you with this. If that's true that your goal is to be happy, I believe that's impossible for a person to do if they are unethical even some of the time. I believe it's impossible. Here's a sentence no one else on earth says except for me. I promise. No one else ever says this. She lies, but I bet she's really happy. Like, who talks like that? I bet she's miserable. And think about the people in your life who lie. Are they happy? Here's another sentence no one else says. He is really mean to the people that work for him, but I bet he goes home at night and is really nice to his family. No, he's a jerk. I promise you he's a jerk to his family. Every time you are unethical, you are acting against your own best interests. And in philosophy talk, in my world, that's irrational. It's irrational to be unethical. And that's what a CLE class should talk about, right? Not a bunch of rules, because Enron had rules. Okay, not an honor code. Every university has an honor code. It doesn't matter. It's got to be this deep in here. And the why behind why you're good is what matters. You want to leave a legacy, don't you? I read this poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson called Success. And it says, you leave a legacy by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. And I thought, once I learned what that meant, I thought, wait a second, I just need to be a good dad? I don't have to cure cancer anymore? Yeah, healthy child. Wait a second, I don't have to cure cancer anymore? I just need to plug into my community? Yeah, garden patch. But my mom has cancer. I know people who have cancer. Someone needs to go cure cancer, okay? A redeemed social condition. But here's the sentence. A healthy child, comma, a garden patch, comma, or a redeemed social condition. Those 3 things are equal. And when you believe that, it totally changes the trajectory of your life, doesn't it? So pick one. Let's pick one. I got 2 kids. When they're 18, my students are in charge of their life. Just think about the math of that. And that frightens me. Because I don't want my kids to grow up in a world where 70% of my students cheat. Do you blame me? And if I have a room full of college students, I say, how many of you want to have kids? They all do. I said, did you know that when your kids are 18, my daughters are in charge of their life? And I look at them and I say, do you want your kids to grow up in a world where my daughters cheat like you do? And they're like, well, hell no. Oh, you don't? Do you see the irony in that? Do you want your kids to grow up in a world where we just all hate each other in this country because we can't talk about important things? They're like, well, no. So it comes back to Kant, who's a famous philosopher. And I'm going to paraphrase Kant. If you don't like the way something's going in your world, you have a moral obligation to help make it better. A moral obligation to help make it better. So what are you going to pick? And nothing could better describe our moment, could it? Because we don't like the way things are going in our world, so we need to plug in and try to make it better. And this is my little itty-bitty sliver of an attempt. But we need inches, right? We need everybody gaining inches. And if you do what we talked about today, you will shine like a person should, which is from the inside out. And if you shine from the inside out like you're supposed to, people will walk up to you and give you the biggest compliment you can give another person, and that's this. Hey, you seem really happy. Tell me why. And if someone asks you that, what they're basically saying is, you have what I want. Tell me why. No one ever walks up to anyone and goes, "You're really rich, tell me why you're so happy." No. "You're really famous, tell me why you're so happy." "Man, you're really accomplished in your career, tell me why you're so happy." Those two things, those questions are never put together in a sentence. It's, "You seem deeply happy because I think your priorities are in line. And you seem to wake up happy, and you seem to love your family. Man, you seem to care about the people that work for you. So why?" And that's the real rabbit's piece of this. So I'm happy to sign a book for you, but otherwise, thank you so much for the filming, and thank you. This is awesome. Thank you.